Page 18. Daily synopsis. Moshe is going to inform the Jewish people how Hashem will provide for them with material bounty in the land of Israel. But God also cautions them that should they overindulge in their wealth, it will cause them to rebel against Him.
Oy.
Ain't that the truth? Right? Too much prosperity can be
the children gets fat.
Exactly. I guess today. Let's see today. Let's see. Yud Gimel. Yarkivehu al b'mosei haaretz. He settled them. Hashem will settle them. Or settled them in the high place of the earth. A lot of times it speaks in the past, but it means the future. God settled them in the high place of the earth. And gave them to eat of the ripe produce of the field. Vayinikehu. Sorry, let me turn it off. Okay. He settles them in the high place of the earth, and he gave them to eat of the right produce of the field. He let them suckle honey from a rock, oil from hard rock. Let's see Rashi. He settled them in the high place of the earth. The entire verse to be explained as Onkelos translates it. So again, this whole parsha is poetic. It's called a song. And Moshe is speaking less than this will happen, that will happen, this happened, more using poetic language. So Rashi says you got to go to Onkelos. Onkelos in general, which was the Roman convert who translated the Chumash into Aramaic, but he didn't just translate, he actually gave small explanations. So sometimes Rashi says, just go to Onkelos to understand it. Let's see. Rashi will actually unpack it for us. God settled them. This terminology is used here since the land of Israel is higher than other countries. He settled them in the high place on earth. High place on earth means Israel is the highest point on earth on a geologically, but spiritually, let's say, also somewhat high as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Physically,
I think so.
Is Israel the highest?
No, it's part.
Mountainous region.
Yeah, okay. Let's go on. He gives them to eat of the ripe produce of the field. This refers to the fruits of the land of Israel, which sprout and ripen earlier than the fruits of other countries. So God's giving them ripening produce. We'll give them. He let them suckle honey from a rock, says Rashi. It happened. What does it mean? What's this poetic, blessing talking about? God had them suckle honey from a rock. It's referring to how they had so much dates and figs that had nectar, honey nectar, that it was it was, I guess metaphorically, like they were, there's honey flowing even out of a rock or something. That's how they translated that. With honey that oozes from figs grown in soil hard as a rock.
Okay.
Let's see. A story. In Sichni was a town in Israel. A man said to his son, go bring us dried figs from the fig barrel in the basement. I had a basement. He went and found honey floating at the top of the barrel. Now, his son said, Father, that's not the fig barrel. That is the honey barrel. The father said, sink your hand into it and you'll take out dried figs. So what's the honey from a rock? So different opinions. Rashi is telling us in this story that even dried figs would have so much, oozing honey. Or the land of Israel is mountainous and rocky, yet still it can give this very lush fruit, honey fruit.
But honey is sweet.
Okay.
That's a feeling. It gives us joy.
Right. Yeah, I think honey represents luxury indulgence of sweetness and right.
literally, it makes us feel happy.
Yeah. Sugar.
You start with, seems like nothing.
Right. So honey is like one of the greatest kind of like delightful foods
Gives
coming
you
from the rock, the
motivation.
rocky
Gives
land.
you some motivation.
Yeah. Okay. Continuing, V'shemin mechamish tzur, that he let them suckle oil from a hard rock. Elu zesim shel gush chalav. This refers to the olive trees of Gush Chalav from the territory of the tribe of Asher. But Mosei Aretz, we said earlier, God settles them in high places. I know Rashi's going back. It's a term denoting height. Sadai here means field. So Sadai is a poetic way of saying Sadeh, field. Chalmish Tzur, he has them suckle oil from I think it's a flintstone, hard rock. But it means really, Chalmashur means the hard part of a rock, the resilience and strength of a rock. When it's not connected to the next word, it's punctuated chalamish. When it's connected, it's chalmish. Okay, Yodalit. Verse 14. Chemas bakar v'chalif tzayin im chelev. He gave them butter from cattle. Gave isn't he's going to give. Butter from cattle and milk from flocks. Im chelev karim, with the fat of choice sheep. Be'elim b'nei vashan v'atudim, and Bashan bred rams and he goats. Im chelev kilyas chita, with the fat of kidney-like kernels of wheat. The fat of wheat, of kidney-like big kernels. The dam einav tishtachomer. You drank the juice of grapes that tasted like wine. Let's see Rashi. He gave them butter from cattle, milk from flocks. This is abundance. Again, this is speaking in the past poetically. It's really referring to it's going to happen in the future. These are prophecies. So what's this prophecy where they're having so much milk and butter? This is in the days of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, where it says in Melachim 1:5-3, 10 fatted cattle and 20 grazing cattle and 100 sheep. With fat of the choicest sheep. This was realized in the days of the 10 tribes. As it says, and they eat the fat ones of the flock. Again, there's a few prophecy. They're going to have a lot of choicey sheep. And they're going to have the fat of kidney-like wheat. This is also in the days of Solomon. As it says, King Shlomo's food was a large amount of bread, at the daily bread consumption, implying there was incredibly great big wheat stalks that could provide so much bread for the king's house and the nation. The dam ein of tishta, you will drink the juice of grapes. Grape juice, that'll taste like good wine. This is realized in the days of the 10 tribes that seceded after King Shlomo passed away. They seceded and made a northern kingdom.
Now we're back to the future tense.
Yeah. Oh, now, interesting.
Go from the past
Yeah, I don't know how this works. We said past, but now we're going to future. It's all going on future. It's probably layered with maybe a bunch of meanings. So maybe there's a reason why it's past. Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, it's all referring right now to Rashi in the future. Even though the tense is past, the future, it's all prophecies of you're going to have this really great food. And it says in days of the 10 tribes, those who drink out of oversized wine goblets. Chemas bakar. This refers to the fat. Next page 20. This refers to the butter of cattle. It means the cream that skimmed off the surface of the milk. How do you call it? Sour cream? I don't know. Chalif tzoin, the milk of flocks. Now, a grammar rule. Chalav of flocks. When you make it one word, like what do you call it? Like a hyphenated word, it becomes chalev. Sorry, not chalav. Karim. It's interesting how it goes out of order in the way it's defining the terms, but whatever. Karim means sheep. Elem means rams. Literally, Bnei Vashan was a region where there were very fatty rams. prize-winning rams. Kilyas chita, which again, he's wheat grains that were fatty like kidney fat and large as a kidney. So it gets very high quality. Obviously, it's not fatty; it's wheat. But I guess the very nutritional, like the same way something's very fatty, was very chock full of taste and nutrients, and it was also very big, like a kidney. V'damenov, this means you will drink good wine, and you'll drink good, decent wine, but it will have the taste of first-rate wine. I mean, even though it's the blood of grapes, damenov means the blood. Usually there's certain parts of the grape that you save for the better wine. Any part's going to become great wine. And the term chamer is Rashi is giving us the etymology of the word. The Aramaic word for wine is chamar. Chamer here is not a noun, but it's actually an adjective describing good wine taste. Vinos in Old French. These two vinos means, these two verses we just explained them. These two verses can also be explained according to Onkelos' translation that he settled them in the strong places of the land. Basically, we'll see Onkelos translates this not about, a little bit confused. Just going back to footnote 45. Okay, so one of the good things about Chayenu is this Rashi footnotes. I think that's one of the reasons we buy it. We have a huge stack of Shemus every year. If you think about what Rashi said, you have to really, at least, you say in Yiddish, you have to halt cup. You have to focus for a few pages to really appreciate the flow. He started out saying that this is going to be translated like Onkelos. But what does Onkelos say? It's actually not what Rashi said. Onkelos said he would translate these verses all metaphorically, speaking as follows, and I quote, God settled them in the strong points of the land, and he fed them the spoil of their enemies. He gave them the spoil of the rulers of the cities and the property of the inhabitants of the fortified cities. So Onkelos translates all metaphor about conquering the enemies and acquiring the land. Right? It's all metaphor.
Where are you reading?
I'm reading on footnote 45 on page 18. I'm going back.
Okay.
Onkelos basically is not talking about the qualities of the land. He's talking about they're going to devour them like grape, make grape juice out of them or something. Basically conquer, succeed, and inherit the land. Okay? But Rashi says it could be explained like Onkelos, but then for 2 pages, did he mention anything about these verses meaning conquering and devouring our enemies? He didn't mention that. What was the general explanation of these poetic verses? Qualities of the land: big wheat, good honey nectar, wine, all these things. So, are you picking Onkelos or you're not picking Onkelos? You get the question?
Mm-hmm.
So in the bottom, in 45, they quote the super commentaries, and they say, Rashi, generally, this is so generally he likes the Rashi is in general, especially when you learn the Rebbe's very analytical essays on Rashi. Rashi did not cut and paste. People think Rashi's he's like cut and paste, like a little bit of Talmud, a little Medrash, and put it there. He did not cut and paste. He actually cherry picked, or no, he would pick. He wants to explain the verse, and he'll quote Talmud or using logic, Talmud or Medrash, cherry pick to use the most logical explanation of the verse. So he's really picking and choosing little bits or some or all. Sometimes it can be copy paste, but it's always what's going to help me understand the verse. So he's really picking a little bit of Onkelos, but then he's cherry picking only that, the general theme. This is talking about inheriting the land. But if you want to get, he says, I like the general area, direction Uncles is going to, that these poetic, cryptic verses are referring to inheriting the land. But I'm going to say it's actually talking the qualities of the land that's being inherited. Then he ends off at the end. However, if you want, you can go full Uncleist here and talk all about conquering. Anyways, that's really cool. Now we quote the verse that Alan mentioned earlier, famous verse. Tesvav, verse 15, page 20. Vayishman Yeshurun vayivat, but Yeshurun grew fat, Jeshurun grew fat. It's one of the names of the Jewish people. And they kicked, and he kicked, it's in the singular. Yeshurun, aka the Jewish people, got fat, indulgent, prosperous, and kicked, meaning rebelliously. Shamanta avisa kasisa. Poetically, you grew fat, you became obese, and covered yourselves with fat. Vayitish eleha asahu. And he abandoned, okay, I'm giving my own translation. He abandoned Yeshurun, the collective body of the Jewish people, abandoned God who made them, their maker. Vayinabel tru Yeshuasai, and he showed contempt for the rock of his salvation. Let's do a little Rashi. Avisa. Avisa comes from the Hebrew word ovi. Ovi means thick. You became thick. Kasisa. Kasisa comes from the term kasis, like a covering. You covered yourself. Used as in, for he covered his face with fat by indulging in eating. When you overeat, it's like you're indirectly covering your face with fat because you become fat from overeating. Like a man who is fat inside, and as a result, his belly folds over outside. And similarly, the end of that verse says, and it made a mouth-like fold upon his flanks. So the covering means the covering with fat folds. Kasisa, Rashi also continues, it's sometimes used in the intransitive conjugation, I don't know what that means, in the sense of covering, as in, but the prudent man covers himself from disgrace. Were it written kisisa with a dagish, it would imply that you covered others. So his point is, kasisa is that you became covered, not you're covering others. Okay, whatever. Yeshua say he showed contempt for the rock of their salvation. Gino uvizo, he despised them and he shamed him. That's what it means Nabel. As it says elsewhere, if they're back to the sanctuary of Israel, of a God, there's no greater show of contempt than turning your back to the sanctuary of God, which was what they did in those days when they rebelled. Okay, let's continue on. We're almost on a couple more verses. Tazayin yakni'u bizodim. He aroused God's zealous anger with foreign idols. Yachisu. And he angered him with abominable acts. Yakni'u, he means, Rashi translates it as he incited God's anger and zealousness to punish. Sayavois, with abominations, with abominable acts such as sodomy and witchcraft. Oy. Which are termed to'eva. We see those are terms that are called abominations elsewhere. Yodzayin, Yizbuchu Lashedim Layaleha. They sacrifice to demons that have no Eloha. That's what Rashi means. They sacrifice, part of the rebellion is they sacrifice to demons that have no Eloha, sounds like have no God. But let's see, we'll translate soon. Elohim lo yidaum. Gods that they did not previously know. Chadashim mikarav ba'u, idols that were only recently came on the scene. Lo yisa'arum abaysechem, which your fathers had no reverence of. And Rashi, lo elaha, does not mean God, it means demons that are, it's almost translated, that have no purpose. They have no worth. Were they to have some purpose, God wouldn't have such a zeal of double intensity as there is now. Meaning to worship the sun, the moon, not allowed, but you can see where someone makes that mistake. But to worship these made up idols that are literally like only a human being could do such a stupid, thing, it's doubly offensive. Chadashim mikarev ba'u, new idols that came recently. Afilu umay slahir gilimhem. Even the nations were not familiar with them. A Gentile who would see them would say, "This is a Jewish idol." Understand? The Jews, he's predicting, and later on, they're going to veer off so badly. They're not just going to want to be like the Gentile idol worshippers. They're going to want to make their own idols. Which, by the way, you read modern history. The Jews always made their own modern isms and idols. They never just said, like, "Oh, we're just going to copy exactly." It's like they always had to tweak some other faith or paganism or ism and make it like a Jewish type of worship. Lo sa'odim avisechem. Your fathers did not fear them. Lo yoru mihem. Their hairs did not stand on end before them. Sa'odim is a weird word. It means like hair. It's like a verb of hair. Your fathers did not hair them. What does it mean? It means your fathers did not revere and fear them, that their hair, which a euphemism is that their hair would stand on ends. They didn't have their hair stand on ends. So it's explained in Sifri. You can also explain it another way. Sa'orim is a term of demons. Se'irim are demons. Your forefathers, in other words, we translate as your forefathers did not make demons like this. They didn't demonize or deify these. You want to talk about demons? I don't want to talk about demons, but demons are something that is the Torah ascribes reality, that it exists. But I think it sounds, from what I get, is demons are talked about all over in the Talmud. Essentially, God, by the end of creation, created these demonic creatures, not like the Christian term of demon, but more of like forces that are real and have some bearing in the physical world, but they're metaphysical. They're not totally physical. So they can wreak havoc. And it says like they're in desolate places. It talks about them, but they're not like they could take physical form, but they're not physical. I don't know. It's a whole discussion. Look at Chabad.org. The point is, though, that many pagans would have real knowledge of the occult and of spirituality, and they'd be like, "Oh, there's this like demonic force. I'm going to worship demonic force."
Right.
Jews know everything, even demonic. Let's say there's a demonic force. It's only part of God's creation. It's not to be worshipped. Just like you don't worship the sun, as powerful as it is, you don't worship these demonic forces, whatever they are. Look it up at Chabad.org. So a lot of times when the worshiping idols is worshiping demons. Last verse. Tzur yolot chateshi. You ignored the rock who bore you, batishkach el mechalalecha, and forgot God who brought you out of the womb. Teshi means you forget. But a rabbi's expounded it. When he comes to do good for you, you anger him and you weaken his power to be able to do good for you. So two ways. You forgot your rock that bore you, and you forgot God who brought you out of the womb. Another way is that Teshi means weakness. That God wants to always do good for you. The blessing comes from God. He wants to give the blessing. But you, through your offensive acts of turning your back on God and worshiping idols, you are weakening God's ability to give blessing. Understand? It's like Sur Yilad Chateshi. You are weakening God's ability to give you blessing because you're making such blockage. Fascinating. El Mechal Lecha, it means the God who brought you out of the womb. The term is similar to who assists gazelles to give birth, labors out of a woman and child.